Good morning. Welcome into the SEC Morning Report. It is Thursday, November 16th, and we are here to bring you another episode of the SEC Morning Report on Southeastern 14, where we talk all things SEC football related. We're going to get into some matchup stuff in Week 12. We are going to talk a little bit about the Florida Gators program and what it can mean not only this week with a result versus Missouri, and then also Florida State coming up, but also what's going on in the recruiting world and what it means for Billy Napier and the future of that program going forward. And then also we have a favorite in mind for the Texas A&M coaching job that I personally would like to see get hired, and I'll give you the reasons why on that. So excited for this next episode. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications while you're in here, because we are talking SEC sports each and every day. I do football every morning with the morning report that you're watching right now, Monday through Friday. Blake Lovell, Chris Lee, they do football coverage as well, reacting to news, doing all kinds of analysis on power rankings, things like that. But Blake Lovell and Chris also work on basketball. Nobody covers SEC basketball quite like we do here at Southeastern 14, so make sure you are tuned into that. We'll have tomorrow Jake's Takes from Jake Crane on Crane & Company, the Daily Wire. So all kinds of stuff going on here. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we want to also tell you about our partners at Bet Online real quick. Bet Online, guys, there is no other place that you're going to find all the action that you'll find at Bet Online. The last of the major pro sports leagues is off and rolling with the NBA. College basketball is kicked up. Of course, NFL, college football are hitting the playoff time around here. UFC, NHL, everything's in full swing right now, and you can check it all out over at Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. All the betting action, the live betting action, along with every sport available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head over to betonline.ag today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Now, where we're going to start is with the Florida Gators. Florida is struggling on the field and off the field as the season wraps up. 2023 had been a kind of a banner recruiting year at this point. The 2024 class throughout this year, the Gators were picking up some, high profile recruits. It really started with DJ Lagway, a quarterback out of Texas, and everybody started kind of gravitating towards Billy Napier's class a little bit. They got Chauncey Bowens at one point, a big-time running back out of the state of Florida. However, and he was committed for a long time. However, he during the summer flipped from Florida to Georgia. Just yesterday, Nazir Johnson, a big defensive tackle out of the state of Georgia, flipped from the Gators, who he'd been committed to for a while, to the Georgia Bulldogs. Earlier this week, actually during the game where Florida was losing to LSU on the field, Jamonta Waller was over watching Auburn dismantle Arkansas, and he flipped from Florida to Auburn earlier in the week. Wardell Mack flipped subsequently after that from Florida. A defensive back out of the state of Louisiana flipped from Florida to Texas. And now there's still a couple other names out there, guys, that you have to be on the lookout for. Marius Williams, Ohio State seems to be trending to take the heavily recruited. Some have him ranked as a 5-star offensive tackle. A lot of people say that he's going to end up at Ohio State and flip away from the Gators. Xavier Filsaime, who's a safety that's been committed to Florida for quite some time, has Texas and Oregon both trying to flip him away. And then Adarius Hayes is being pursued by Miami. This class was all the way up to number 3 in the rankings at different recruiting services you look at, On Three, Rivals, all these guys over there, 24/7 Sports. And now, depending on which one you look at, it's fell to 5th or a little bit lower. If they lose some of these guys, it'll fall well out of the top 10. And here's the question is, at that point, if they don't have the recruiting to lean on and point to and say, hey, yeah, we're not having the year that we want to. However, look at what's coming in next year. If that staff doesn't have that to hang their hat on, and the Gators go out this week, 11-point underdog at Como when they take on the Missouri Tigers at Fair Field over there, Memorial Stadium, they go out and that spread, let's say, holds true, or maybe is even a little bit worse with what Missouri did to Tennessee last week. And then they follow it up with a loss at home, because they'll be an underdog even at home to Florida State, who's considered to be a playoff team. They lose those 2 games and miss out on a bowl game. Plus, they don't have the recruiting class to kind of point back to and say, hey, yeah, but we know we weren't good this year, but with these guys, we'll have a influx of talent, and we'll be ready to roll in 2024. Plus, you look at that schedule for 2024 and how brutal it is. People may question, hey, are we any better off now than we were when we had Dan Mullen? And if Dan Mullen at least was getting results on the field, not necessarily results of that to Georgia and Alabama's level, okay, but he wasn't, when he got fired, he wasn't far removed from getting a Kyle Trask led team to the SEC championship game and putting more points on Alabama than anybody had done during that year in said SEC championship game. And Dan Mullen was able to scheme stuff up, just like Billy Napier is known for, being able to scheme stuff up on his offense. But if the recruiting, obviously Napier, the perception is that he puts in more effort to recruiting than Mullen did. But if the results are the same, and if the product on the field is hurting the recruiting class, will the powers that be, the admin, the boosters, people like that at Florida become impatient? Will they want to put up with possibly another year of just subpar performance, because it's going to be hard to bring in and fit all the needs they need to fit in the transfer portal, especially if the high school recruiting class is underwhelming. And then if you wait into the middle of next year, because that schedule is going to be brutal, and Florida's, let's say, below 500 at the midpoint next year, what are we doing in terms of, okay, some availabilities and things like that of guys you could possibly go out and get? Because Florida is a job that I don't know what happened this last time around. Obviously, Billy Napier was a hot target. Some people were upset with the hire to begin with. This has nothing to do with Billy Napier personally. He's a great guy. He's a man of faith. I respect him. I think he, my friend Tavares King, who does a show here with us, he thinks the world of Billy Napier as a person, as a man, how he builds relationships, stuff like that. But it doesn't always work out. And Florida is a unique place with very, very high standards and expectations. And the secret to life is about managing expectations. And when the expectations are as high as they are at Florida, it's hard to bring that, be the thermostat there and set that temperature down a little bit, cool things off to where you have time to build something up, because they're used to winning. They're used to it being up at a fever pitch and right there in the national title picture year in, year out, from the Urban Meyer years and things like that. And once you've had a taste of that, it's hard for a fan base to be patient. It's hard for an administration to be patient. So we'll see what these last couple of weeks hold with Florida, but it is not good right now on the recruiting trail or on the field. So we'll see how Billy Napier and the Gators finish things up. Now, guys, we're going to talk about Georgia and Tennessee. I'll go ahead and throw the graphic up again. This line hadn't moved a whole lot. At 10 on Bet Online. Other places you'll see it 10.5. Over under 59.5, 3:30 CBS game. These are two teams trending in different directions after the Volunteers went to Como and got just ran through in the second half by Missouri, and Georgia laid it on Ole Miss really from the end of the first quarter all the way through the rest of that game. Two blowout results in different fashions over there. One, a win that really propelled Georgia up to number one in the country and bolstered its resume. And Tennessee looking at what is, got to be, in terms of what the Tennessee fans were hoping for, a disappointing result. Now sitting at 7-3 and could go to a fourth loss with the number one team in the country coming in. However, this is at home for Tennessee, and there's going to be, they always have some unique elements to their game under Josh Heupel. They play at a pace, again, on offense that is just tough to replicate when you're trying to prepare for it. I think it does help, Georgia. This is the third year that they're gonna see it against Josh Heupel. However, it's a lot. It's a lot to prepare for in that Rocky Top crowd. You can't simulate that either. So how will Georgia handle that environment? First, I would say this is the most talented team they will have played on the road. Tennessee is good up front on defense. They play much better at home. I think if you're looking at Tennessee, you're hoping that performance, if you're a Tennessee fan, you're hoping that performance up front against Missouri, both offensively and defensively, was some kind of aberration that, they won't get just physically dominated, and also on defense not play as sound and fit gaps and maintain gap integrity like they did against Missouri, because that was atrocious in how they fit split zone, how they fit the outside zone. It was a rough performance all the way around. They lost. They had, lack of eye discipline on the back end and the defense. So let's talk about some key matchups in this game. We know one thing Tennessee likes to do offensively is go fast. And because of that, and they line up and they spread you out so far, it's hard for corners to follow around a certain receiver and things like that. And we all know that Georgia's best corner right now, and maybe one of the best corners in the entire country, is Kamari Lassiter. He's playing at an extremely high level. And against teams that go at a more traditional pace, or even just up-tempo, but not warp speed like Tennessee can do at times, Kamari Lassiter can follow the best receiver around the field. He did so against Luther Burden. After that first drive that Missouri had, he followed around Luther Burden and negated much of his production. And then against Ole Miss, he was lined up against Trey Harris every time, trying to thwart their number one receiving attack over there. Now, with Tennessee, it's a little bit different because, okay, now, Brew McCoy's done for the year. Deontay Thornton is injured. So they have Squirrel White, they have Ramel Keaton. You have Nimrod and Webb that have stepped up over there for him. I would definitely say White, I think, in my opinion, the most dangerous, but I don't think Georgia will have the opportunity to shadow him, to follow him across the field, and they'll be able to create some one-on-one matchups versus the other corner, Dalen Everett. Julian Humphrey, mind you, who had started to eat into Dalen Everett's playing time. I think, he's injured, so he's not going to be available. I don't believe he'll be available in this game. So Dalen Everett, who has had some struggles this year, is going to be put in situations, especially with the spread, the way that Tennessee spreads you out, the width and the alignment that they have on offense. It puts guys on an island, and he's struggled at times this year in man coverage. He has, and we'll see if Josh Heupel and Joe Milton and either Squirrel White or Ramel Keaton are able to take advantage of that. It could even be Nimrod or Webb, and see if they could take advantage of that against Dalen Everett. And will Georgia play it differently? Will they just say, hey, we're going to keep two high safeties the whole time? But then what that does is that lightens your box against the run and doesn't allow Georgia, who they're very active fitting the run with their safeties, to fit the run the same way. And Tennessee is very, very good with their running game. Now, Mizzou shut it down. They thwarted their gap scheme, any kind of option attack that Joe Milton did, some speed option type stuff, a quarterback run. None of it was working against Missouri. But again, on the road for Tennessee, different than a home game environment. And there are a couple of young linebackers playing in this game, C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson. So the matchup I'm looking at is how often can they isolate Dalen Everett, because I don't think Georgia would just sit the whole time with two high safeties to make sure Everett has help. I do think that you'll see, some match man, some pattern match, defense type stuff that Georgia does. And also you'll see just some straight man coverage. And in those matchups, Dalen Everett is going to be tested probably 4 or 5 times in this game deep down the field. And how does he hold up against it? So that's a matchup to look at there. Another matchup to look at here is that Tennessee defensive front. Like I said, across the board, some of those Tennessee defenders were just totally out of position against the Missouri run game. And you cannot, I've said it over, you cannot use the transitive property when it comes to football. You can't compare scores and say, well, this happened because of this happened, all this kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, over and over again, we saw in that front seven Elijah Herring, Norman Omar Lott. We saw James Pierce. All these guys fit the run horribly against Missouri. They were out of position. Roman Harrison, all of these guys, there was huge vertical and horizontal seams that Cody Schrader was running through. And it just so happens that Georgia running backs Kendall Milton and Daijun Edwards are coming off a very, very good performance. The offensive line for Georgia is coming off a very good performance against Ole Miss. And you know that they're going to say, Missouri lined up and ran split zone a few times here and just absolutely gashed Tennessee. They got to the perimeter and absolutely gashed Tennessee. And then they were able also to throw it out of the backfield. So you could even see a Cash Jones or a Dylan Bell be utilized as a receiver out of the backfield the way that Tennessee lost Cody Schrader in coverage. That is not applying a transitive property, okay? What that is saying, hey, there is a schematical error that presented itself over and over again and now must be fixed within a matter of a week with the number one team in the country coming in to your building. Can that be done? I want to see if that Tennessee defensive front can fit things a little bit better, whether it's, Amari Thomas, like I said, Omar Norman Lott, Roman Harrison, Elijah Herring. Elijah Herring was running all over the field, it seemed like, but there wasn't a whole lot of results being made. We know Aaron Beasley, all these guys have been around at Tennessee for a while, so it was just shocking and surprising to see them get the ball ran on them. Not only Cody Schrader, but also Brady Cook with his legs, and Carson Beck has proven over the last couple of games that if you decide to man up and try to take away the weapons that Georgia has and you don't keep somebody looking at him, he will take off and gash you down the middle of the field as well. So that's the matchup I'm looking at on Tennessee's front. How does that front seven hold up against Georgia's running game? If Georgia can come out and run the football, then you might as well just say curtains right there for Tennessee, over with. Because if Georgia has the run game going and they are multidimensional, and Carson Beck has the threat of the play action and all that kind of stuff with his weapons, Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey on the field at the same time, not to mention Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas, who have emerged as well, both during Brock Bowers' absence and then also continued even after he came back against Ole Miss. And Georgia's very, very potent on the offensive side, and we'll see how Tennessee's able to thwart that. But their front seven is going to have to make a difference in this one, both stopping the run and also getting to the passer and getting home. They did sack Brady Cook and Missouri 3 times last week. However, that pass defense for Tennessee is heavily predicated on not just getting pressure, but getting home and getting sacks. When they don't, they give up some big plays over there at Tennessee, and they give up a lot of yardage. So looking at that front seven for the Vols, and we'll see how that goes down in Knoxville this weekend. Lastly, guys, I want to mention here's why Texas A&M should hire Mike Elko. Mike Elko is not the sexiest name out there. There is not going to be a splash hire like a lot of people want. Somebody like a Dabo Swinney, like a Urban Meyer. Some people even want a Deion Sanders, somebody with a lot of charisma, or somebody who has titles in the trophy case, right? However, Mike Elko knows what the DNA of that program, that Texas A&M program, is like. He was defensive coordinator there from 2018 to 2021 before leaving. And listen, he passed over some head coaching opportunities before taking the job at Duke. And if you've kept up with college football, you know that Duke started off the year this year by beating Clemson, and they had an opportunity if Riley Leonard, their quarterback, very talented, who will play on Sundays. If he doesn't go down versus Florida State, they probably take down Florida State this year as well. And they've had a lot of success, especially for a Duke program that did some okay things under David Cutcliffe at times, but the last 3 seasons prior to Mike Elko coming, they had 10 wins total. And he's been able to revive that program over there. Easier said than done, of course, with the academic standards that Duke has. That makes it hard with talent acquisition. And obviously, Texas A&M will not have that problem. They've got as much talent as anybody in the country on that roster. But the words that you see out there associated with Mike Elko: attention to detail, organization, player buy-in and belief. These are all issues that Texas A&M has suffered with during the Jimbo Fisher era, especially over the last 3 seasons. They have not bought into what Jimbo is preaching and selling. The organization in that organization, the organization inside of that program has lacked at times. There's been cases where it seems like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. There's been discipline issues, things of that nature. And when you're talking about a guy like Mike Elko, who is Ivy League, an Ivy League educated guy from Penn, and then has, called plays, of course, on the defensive side of the ball at programs like Notre Dame and also Texas A&M before, and helped Texas A&M win that Orange Bowl in 2020 with a very stout defense over there. I just think you're looking at a guy who checks all the boxes. No, he's not a flashy hire. He's not going to be the guy that everybody says Texas A&M hired who. Wow, it's not going to be like it would be if Urban Meyer came on board. But he is a blue collar, just grind it out, have players show up and work hard, believe type guy. And I think Mike Elko is a guy who he's got connections to the East Coast from the New Jersey area. So I think he would be able to recruit from out that way. He's been around the state of Texas, like I said, as the defensive coordinator there before. And I think he's just a good fit, a defensive-minded guy who, let's face it, Jimbo, even though they had good defenses, he was an offensive-minded guy, but he was an antiquated offensive-minded guy. And I think what you need is someone who's not afraid to go out and kind of modernize this offense a little bit, even more so than Bobby Petrino had done this year. And, with Jimbo Fisher trying to bring him in, and I wouldn't even be shocked if Mike Elko got to be the hire, if he maybe even retained Bobby Petrino and unshackled him a little bit more as offensive coordinator. I wouldn't think that would be a bad move, in my opinion, if you were Mike Elko. But I think Mike Elko is the guy that Texas A&M should go hire. Make sure to put your opinion on who the next Texas A&M coach should be. A lot of mentions of Dan Quinn and the Cowboys defensive coordinator, former Atlanta Falcons head coach, Dan Campbell, who played at Texas A&M and now is doing a great job with the Detroit Lions. So put in the chat who you think should be the next Texas A&M head coach. But for my money, I would go with Mike Elko. And I would say, hey, you're a guy we're rolling with to take Texas A&M to the level of respectability and competitiveness that it should be at year in and year out. Guys, we hope that, speaking of respect, we hope that you respect the content that we're putting out here. We hope that you like it, enjoy it. We hope you'll hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It's absolutely free. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Also, you can check out all of our content over on the podcast side of things: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, everywhere you get your audio content. You can also check us out there as well. Remember, we are presented by Bet Online. You can receive all the information in the description below and follow all of our socials. You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, using @BGilmer18. And thank you so much for joining me this morning on the SEC Morning Report. We will have more with Jake Crane from Crane & Company tomorrow on an episode of Jake's Takes here on Southeastern 14. So I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. Check out Chris Lee, Gavin Schoenwald live 12 Eastern, 11 Central on the SEC Daily Show. And make sure to hit up all of Blake Level's SEC basketball content as well for everyone at Southeastern 14. I'm Blayne Gilmer. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time right here on your home of daily SEC sports coverage, Southeastern 14.